Good morning, everybody, and welcome to study session this Thursday. We have three things on our agenda. One, we're going to get a presentation on Division Connects from STA. We're also going to have a short presentation from CHHS on some CDBG dollars that are available. And then we're going to have two items to discuss as legislative issues in Olympia. And then we're going to go into an executive session. So I will start it off. I'm not sure who's lead on STA, but I don't know if it's Councilmember Mung or Mike Tressiter. So whoever wants to jump in and take the reins.
We've got Carl Otterstrom here,
Okay.
and also Councilmember Burke is on the team as well. But I think Carl or Mike, whoever wants to take it.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. Take it away.
Well, good morning, council members. I'm Carl Otterstrom, the Director of Planning and Development for Spokane Transit. I'll actually turn it over to my colleague at SRTC, Jason Lean, who will begin the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Carl. Yeah, my name is Jason Lean. I work with SRTC, and we both, SDA and SRTC, are jointly managing this project. Can you all see the PowerPoint okay?
Yep.
See some nods? Okay. So I'm going to give an overview and introduction about this project, and then I'm going to turn it over to Carl to talk about some of the exciting work that we're doing right now. And this project, Division Connects, it's a corridor study of Division Street. And this is looking at the corridor from its connection to downtown to its northern reaches to the connection to the North Spokane corridor. So it's a little over 8 miles. It's a multi-jurisdictional study. As I mentioned, STA and SRTC are jointly managing the project, and our partner agencies that are also involved are WashDOT, City of Spokane, and Spokane County. It's a 2-phase study, and we're currently in that first phase. And what the first phase is looking at is multimodal transportation along the corridor. And one of the key components of that is implementation of bus rapid transit. And so what the study is considering is implementation of higher performance transit, but also how can other modes be better accommodated within the corridor in terms of vehicular traffic as well as active transportation modes. So how can you enhance walking and bicycling also along the corridor? And the study approach is taking a look at the entire system. So one of the very fascinating aspects of this study is the future completion of the North Spokane corridor. So with anticipated completion of that facility in about 10 years, what type of effect or impact does that have on the transportation system? And we have some interesting travel demand modeling results that we will discuss. And what it demonstrates is that with that additional capacity of the NSC, some trips shift around within the north part of Spokane, and it creates some opportunities on Division with that additional capacity. Some of that, or actually a good deal of it, moving to the NSC. And then the second phase of the study, which we'll be conducting for the majority of the rest of this year, is to look at land use. So starting with that transportation potential transportation investments, and then considering what are some land use opportunities along Division that could complement transit, and also in consideration of some potential changes that will happen in the future with the completion of the NSC. And there'll also be continued look at some of the multimodal connectivity and refinement of that within the corridor. And so this study process is really building a foundation for potential future investments. And so the findings from this can help build on future studies, either preliminary engineering or other sub-area studies. And so we're excited to kind of set the stage for that future work. So the study structure, and I touched on this already, so the project management is between SRTC and STA with our partner agencies from the DOT, City of Spokane, and Spokane County. We have a steering committee that serves an advisory role for the study, and we have a couple of council members that serve on that committee with us today. And that committee does help us provide guidance to the study and helps us move through some of those milestone decisions that we've come across with the study as well. In terms of the technical work, we have a consultant team that's assisting with the work effort, and that consultant team is led by parametrics. And the composition of that steering committee I mentioned consists of the four elected officials, one from Spokane County, Commissioner French, council members Mumm and Burke from the city, council member Tim Hattenberg from Spokane Valley, and then respective leadership from the DOT and SDA, and Mike Gribner and Susan Meyer. And all of these folks serve roles on either the SDA or the SRTC boards, and they've been instrumental in helping guide the study process. And in terms of thinking about Division Street and the steps it has gone through throughout its history and the evolution it's gone through, we found this picture particularly interesting. This is from 1943 along Division, and you can actually see a Division bus there traveling. And one of the interesting things, actually I heard Carl say this the other day, I wasn't aware of this, but that was a very high frequency bus that traveled along Division at that time. So it's interesting to think that looking at the past, where we're at now, then also looking at the future, what are some future opportunities to provide better transit service and other amenities within the corridor. And that's part of what the study is looking at. That's the visionary part of it. Is thinking about those opportunities, speaking about them with you all and with the community, and looking at how those opportunities can translate to potential investments in the future in terms of land use and transportation. And for the way Division is set up today, I talked about we're looking at this corridor as a whole. And when we're looking at alternatives along the corridor, you'll hear us refer to a couple different segments of that. And one is the couplet, which is that segment just north of the river up to Euclid, where Division is broken into two one-way streets, Division and Ruby. And so that has its own character. And when Division comes back together, we commonly refer to that as the main line. So that's north of the couplet up to the Division Y. And then the Y has its own character where it splits into the Newport Highway and Division continues north to that connection with the NSC. If you look at the existing conditions in terms of right-of-way, you'll see that there's fairly consistent right-of-way in the around 95 feet in the main line. And then some similar conditions in the couplet, but if you look at Ruby, there's actually 100 feet of right-of-way. And that demonstrates that, compared to the width of the cross-section, there's actually additional right-of-way there compared to the main line. So that also creates some opportunities for how can you think about, or how can we rethink about how we allocate space within that right-of-way. And that goes along with how we have approached in thinking about potential transportation scenarios for Division. One thing that we asked the steering committee early on is what are some of the assumptions we should use? And one of those is to use the extent of the existing right-of-way. So not really looking beyond that existing right-of-way, but seeing how we can maneuver and allocate space and potential design solutions within that right-of-way. And also what we have been using with help from the consultant team is the regional travel demand model to take a high-level view of future travel demand, and that includes with the completion of the NSC. So in 20 years, with additional capacity of the NSC and other planned transportation improvements in the region, what does travel demand look like in terms of how does growth, what does future growth look like in terms of traffic volumes, and how is that distributed throughout the network? And that is SRTC's regional travel demand model that was utilized for this particular work effort. And then I mentioned active transportation, those walking and bicycling modes. And as part of the multimodal aspects of the study, we want to make sure that we're accommodating those modes either on the street or also looking at parallel routes. So where it may make sense to have, say, a bike greenway or a bike route on a parallel street that's lower volume adjacent to Division, that's also part of what the study scope is looking at. And in terms of where we started with this process, this diagram illustrates how really since last year and in the fall, we started to take a number of different scenarios for division, based on those assumptions, what fits within the existing right-of-way, how can we best accommodate all modes and transit, and started to compile those together into a number of different preliminary scenarios. And what we've done is, as we started with this wider universe of potential concepts and solutions, is to start to narrow them down to a smaller number of more feasible scenarios. And so we've gone through a process with our steering committee over the last few months to look at those initial scenarios, run them through a screening process, and starting to narrow them down. So we went from what were 9 we presented, this is back in November, preliminary scenarios. We actually narrowed those down to 4 more viable scenarios that we took through a more in-depth technical analysis. And that's using things like the trial demand model to analyze what's the impacts of those potential scenarios. And we've stepped through that process to the point where we had a meeting early in January. We looked at some of those initial technical findings with the steering committee, and they gave their blessing to take those 4 alternatives forward for review by the public. So since later in January, we've been launching a more public-facing campaign to take a look at what these alternatives that are being considered, and to allow the public to provide their feedback and learn more about where we're at with the study process. And this is for the transit evaluation framework. It's a nice segue that I'm going to kick it over to Carl to continue with the presentation. Are there any questions before I do that? Okay, hearing none. Go ahead, Carl.
Thanks, Jason. So what's shown here are 7 major criteria that framed the evaluation process and is still relevant to our understanding and development of a preferred alternative for the division line. And what's shown, these icons that help us keep them straight. The first one on the left, top left, transit performance and user benefit, that speaks to the bus riders, the number of riders who are attracted to the service, their travel time savings, and the overall network effects in terms of transit ridership that this project could result in. Corridor mobility, that measurement for evaluating these alternatives is focused on other users of the corridor, from freight, business, people accessing local businesses, other motorists traveling through the corridor, cyclists, and pedestrians. Equitable and inclusive access to transit is exploring the demographics of the corridor and how this project may enhance equity and inclusivity. Responsiveness to community goals is looking at both the policy goals in place in the city of Spokane, the county, as well as feedback from the community about this project and the 4 alternatives. Implementation feasibility speaks to just the nature of constructing and operating transit in the corridor, what risks, challenges that may be unique to individual alternatives. Capital and operating costs, exploring at a planning stage of 0% design, what's a likely cost range and how those costs compare among the different alternatives. And lastly, funding competitiveness. So we know from local experience that the process of the Small Starts Grant Program, which is the most likely funding source for a bus rapid transit project, and it has different criteria that affect a project's success and running through that process. We also know of other funding at the state and federal level that the project or elements may be competitive for, or in some cases, elements of this may not be eligible for federal funding or state transit funding in particular, and maybe need to look at a different source for that. So that's all factored into the funding competitive criterion. We can move to the next slide unless there's questions. So we are still conducting the evaluation and measuring these items. And the initial, as Jason said, the initial work looked at some of these in kind of a initial broad brush. We did model future travel time in the corridor for all 4 scenarios, including, or in addition to no-bill alternative. And that information goes into both the transit performance and user benefit, as well as the corridor mobility. We explored active transportation options, looking at corridor mobility, the demographics, NEPA, SEPA, so that's National Environmental Policy Act, and the State Environmental Policy Act. An initial screening of that to understand what risks we may encounter or issues that may need to be mitigated through the design construction phases of a future BRT project. Compared initial cost estimates, and then as we look at the north end of this corridor, there's a lot of interesting things happening, mainly because there's a Y where the corridor splits in 2, and good transit to be successful needs to really be simple and consistent in its delivery endpoints. And so exploring which is a better choice, Division or North Newport High, or some combination or hybrid of the 2. Next slide. So this slide is showing the 4 alternatives in their cross sections. The main line represents the area of the segment of the corridor between about Euclid up to North Division Y. The couplet is from that south of that, from Foothills Euclid area to the river. And what you see is in red are bus lanes, so dedicated bus lanes, and then the kind of darker shade of red is actually, I think, a crosshatch, are supposed to be BAT lanes, representing business, access, and transit lanes. And those BAT lanes allow for motorists to enter the lane, to prepare to merge into traffic if they're coming from a side street or a business, or to exit the flow of traffic and prepare to go into a business or a side street. And so they've been really pioneered in King County and have been used extensively throughout the United States and BRT projects. And so if you look at these options, I'm going to walk through each of them in the next few slides. Next slide. The center running alternative, we had several of these in the initial screening, and we ended up with just one. The main line is using a dedicated bus lanes north of Euclid all the way to the North Division Y. Stations, as a result, would be in the middle of the street. Like the City Line vehicles, these will have doors on either side of the bus. And this means pedestrians going north-south, they don't have to walk as far. It's very simple to understand where the station is, like a light rail project in many cases. But it means that everybody has to walk to the center of the street to catch transit. The couplet down on the bottom has BAT lanes, but those BAT lanes are on the left side of the flow of traffic. In the case of Division, it's the east side of the road, Ruby, the west side. And where space allows, because space allows on the couplet, there are also dedicated bike lanes. Now, we still want to ensure that there is improved pedestrian accessibility up north, and we'll be exploring ways to do that, especially around nodes. But this is the center running alternative. And so another advantage of this is the center running area, we reduce any conflicts between buses that are trying to travel between stations with vehicles going into businesses. The couplet down below, that section, the buses are able to have, the pedestrians are closer to their origin and destination station. They don't have to cross 2 arterials to re-enter the system. Next slide. This is a rendering, several renderings of what it could look like. The top picture is a center station somewhere north of Garland, I believe, and just a representative location. and you see the crosswalk that would be required, especially if it's away from an intersection, a signalized intersection, and the station there is in either direction. Down below, there's two photos, two renderings of what it could look like on Division on the left-hand side. This is near the general store, I believe, is just hidden behind that tree. And the overall width, really, there's opportunity for wider sidewalks and improvements there with the stations. And you see on the far side of that picture, there is a bike lane. Similarly, on the northbound Ruby picture on the right-hand side, near Sharp, you see the bike lane more prominently there, and the bus is on the left-hand side. Next slide. The next three alternatives all have a similar cross-section and rendering for the main line, where, again, the sidewalk widths are narrower. Outside station areas, you just have the sidewalks, the bus lanes, bat lanes in this case, and then the general purpose traffic lanes in the center, either a center turn lane or channelized lanes. And then the couplet in the alternative, side running alternative A, the buses are on the outside, so the right-hand side, or in the case of Ruby, on the east side, Division on west side, and are similar to the main line that way, but then with the right-of-way opportunity, there is a dedicated protected bike lane in each direction. Ruby, it's one-way north, Division, one-way south. Next slide. This B alternative, the renderings first, I was already moving ahead. You can see the picture, the rendering up on top is near Clark Park. You see the stations on the outside. In many cases, there'll be some slight right-of-way acquisitions for those stations, similar to the city line where we're acquiring slivers of parcels and making small adjustments to landscaping, potentially parking lots nearby. But everything else is basically within the envelope of the existing right-of-way. Cars can enter those lanes again and exit, but only for basically a block before they need to exit out of the lane. The bottom images, the buses are again on the outside or the right side of the street, and stations are shown here on either image across the street from General Store and then adjacent to the housing project next to Gonzaga University. And the bike lane is on the opposite side in a one-way lane, so there's it works as a couplet. Next slide. Okay, this B alternative is, again, everything the same on the main line as the side running A alternative. But in this case, the couplet is a couple of two-way streets. So the division is between Foothills and the river is a 5-lane street, two lanes in each direction, a center turn lane, and the width has the opportunity for on-street parking. Now, so we had a conversation about this yesterday with the STA Planning Development Committee. This is a BRT project. We're not looking to add on-street parking necessarily, but in the context of the overall reimagination of Division and Division Connects, if there's opportunity for greater density along Division and opportunities to reduce off-street parking requirements, on-street parking could be made available on Division. Meanwhile, Ruby becomes really the multimodal street. There's a bike lane in each direction on the outside, as shown in this image. Could also be a cycle track, and bus lanes, and then one general purpose lane in each direction. Next slide. So again, the top image is exactly the same as below as previously in side running A alternative. But on the bottom, you see Division. There is no transit. It is a general purpose street. And on the right-hand side there, Ruby, you see transit takes a really prominent role. One of the things to note here is because of that intensity of the multimodal uses, This is not assuming any turn lanes at the intersections. And you'll see that show up in later data. And then the bike lane shown, and I think if I'm not mistaken, this actually shows a cycle track behind the west side of this. Again, we're exploring both alternatives, and there's some pros and cons and some safety considerations to factor in. But that's something, if this alternative were to move forward, could be explored in further detail. Next slide.
Hey, Carl, can I ask a question?
Yeah, for sure, Councilmember.
So I guess what I'm wondering is, and some of these ideas are kind of neat and sure need to get more fleshed out, but in terms of what you guys have put together so far, how much outreach has there been to the businesses along the corridor? For example, on this, the idea that we would do Ruby as more multimodal, Division as more maybe car focused. I'm curious, the businesses along that route, would they prefer it to be the alternative? I'm just wondering what input have you guys had to make sure that they're satisfied with the ideas that you guys have put forward?
That's a great question, and I'll get into a little bit more later, but we did some focus groups with the businesses earlier on, got solicited different, I think there are several hundred people who are contacted to participate in the focus group. We had an online story map anybody could participate in, but more recently we sent out postcards, a mailer to over 4,000, Jason, 4,200 addresses, property owners and taxpayers within an eighth of a mile of the corridor of both Division and Ruby. So that captures everybody who owns property or is the property management firm taking care of that. And then there are large property owners who have extensive holdings that we are directly contacting and set up one-on-one interviews with them to talk through these alternatives and understand their feedback. Because we want them to see this as an opportunity for redevelopment and infill development. And so if there are pitfalls of any of these alternatives, we need to hear that. So this kind of leverages the best of their intentions.
I appreciate that. And then how far south are you guys, is the plan being looked at? To what point do you guys stop?
Yeah, so the focus has been north of the river, but the project itself is assumed to terminate or at least access the plaza, the FTA Plaza. And at that point, we're exploring different nodes that may be closer to the hospitals or the south end of downtown. A lot of it is a lot of operational considerations, but overall the network effect, if we get to the plaza or in the downtown core or the city line adjacency, then we've kind of connected the whole network. So that is the goal, but as much as possible, when we get to the core, we'll be repurposing or, sharing stations with the city line.
I have some other questions I'll wait on until after your presentation, but one thing I would just add is just a longtime pet peeve of mine is the fact that we do not have a eastbound turn lane into the U District when you're southbound on Division. And I think if there's any way through this process, we could try to figure out a way to solve that. To me, that would be really helpful.
We actually had an initial conversation about that. We kind of put it off for the future. Is there an opportunity for this to connect into the U District? And we have a station, city line station at Pine and Main that this could use before then going downtown. And I think there's some bigger traffic engineering questions at hand, but it's not out of the question yet. We really created the skeleton of the spine, and we'll be doing more engineering design work on the southern end later.
Okay.
Good question. Thank you. So I'll move on. This last alternative is just testing out. One is a more aggressive bicycle environment with a cycle track on Ruby and wider sidewalks both on Division and Ruby to the couplet. Still a couplet, but it explores, well, what happens if we get rid of a lane? And the opportunity on Division may be adding on-street parking, similar to the B alternative, but there's still a bat lane on Division. And then in Ruby, you see that cycle track and the wider sidewalks. Again, so Ruby has a more multimodal focus, but it's still moving a lot of traffic. Next slide. And here are the renderings of that. So again, you see Division, greater opportunity for a large pedestrian landscape. And then Ruby, that bicycle cycle track, and the stations floating as an island, and the bat lane. Again, the bat lane, cars can use that lane to turn right. In this case, up on Sharp, they can make a right-hand turn, but otherwise through traffic is focused on the other 2 lanes. Next slide. So this kind of speaks to a little bit of what Councilmember Cathcart was asking. You can see our stations are proposed here along the corridor, starting North River Drive to Magnesium. Generally, there are stations, bus stops we have today, but there's some culling of the stops to focus at higher generators of ridership. So there's more gaps where it's a half-mile apart to help improve the speed of the service, but still hitting the major points. These stations, we're getting this out there now to understand the system and plan around that, and especially as the second phase of the study looks at land use. But there may still be shifts in those station locations and later on through design. And the dashed areas you see, we haven't sorted out downtown or North Division Y. I will share some findings on that. But as far as downtown, really that's going to be how it operates with the rest of the system and where can we have layover. And again, if there's an intriguing way that we can connect into the U-District, we're open to that. Again, there's some traffic engineering questions that will have to be answered there. Next slide. So as I mentioned, the Y is an interesting area because today our service operates on North Division to the Y, then follows Newport Highway to Hawthorne, across back to 395, and then north to Hastings Road to our park and ride there. The park and ride is on DOT-owned property, WashDOT-owned property, and it's good access to a lot of the growth that's happened over the last 20 years in the Wandermere area. It's not far from the high school, so it has been a really reliable location for ridership over the years. But as we think about the future, we ask the question, is that really the long-term trajectory of that service? And the travel demand model that SRTC has and maintains looks at all the land use changes through 2040. And so using that and modeling this corridor as a sensitivity analysis, we modeled 6 different ways to terminate the route on the north end, including the existing, which is Y6, a Y1, which goes straight up Division, so it's going to be a quicker access to Division and the destinations along there to Hastings Park and Ride. Another alternative that continues from that point, Y2, that goes to Farwell Road. And then you see different options that try to balance between traveling on Hawthorne and then going to Farwell Road and Newport Highway. So traveling on Division to Hawthorne or points north, and then there's one that just goes straight up Newport Highway. What we found in the sensitivity analysis is serving the area around Whitworth University drives more ridership, but getting there faster, so that is more direct, which would be anything but the current alternative, is a better option for that. However, what's interesting, I think, is that doesn't mean continuing to Hastings Park and Ride. But longer term, as the area on Newport Highway develops, that becomes a stronger, more compelling end of line, potential location for a transit center. And as we think about connections and connectivity on the North Spokane corridor, that has greater access, quicker access to the freeway, especially if there's regional service that is nonstop to, say, Cheney or to the Valley, that complements this line. And so we think there may be more of a phased approach that's needed, where we continue with the existing route so that we continue to serve Whitworth, we continue to serve Newport Highway, and at least part of it, and Hastings Park and Ride, and then flip that to more of a what I think is scenario 4 in here in the future. And I think the spokesman review today covered the Mead Works project that's envisioned, and this would there would be some opportunity to make connections with that on the north side of that. Next slide. So travel demand modeling. So I'm really pleased that this was in part of our initial phase of this study. because we've learned a lot about the interaction with the North Spokane corridor. And I really have to say these two projects are complementary as we think about regional traffic and transit. And generally, Spokane is growing, and traffic volumes are expected to grow with it. So what's shown here is the basis of the findings on the right. This map shows the highlighted line, the US 2 route, including Newport Highway. And then those white bands represent cross sections, or screen lines is what we call them in travel demand modeling, where we looked at all the traffic activity across that screen line for a day and peak period, and to understand what's happening with the alternative. So there's a no-build alternative, which is everything, including the NSC, everything but Division Street. And then there are the four alternatives. And as we look at that, number one, traffic on all the north-south arterials is across this corridor is flat and decreasing in case of the division, and others it's decreasing as a result of the NSC. So even though regional traffic is growing and North Spokane traffic is growing, the arterials north-south see a drop in traffic volumes, vehicular traffic volumes. And what's interesting then, the build alternatives, the four alternatives for transit, have a further decrease in that traffic. Part of that is an increase in transit ridership. So we are decreasing traffic further because more people are taking transit on Division Street. Additionally, more vehicles are inclined to use the NSC. And this is really interesting because it's not entirely intuitive. It's not that there's this major traffic congestion on Division that's driving people to go over there. It's just that the two corridors, the competitive edge of Division is so close to the NSC for many motorists that a 10-second, 20-second difference, and literally that's what the model is looking at, is putting people, the regional through trip say, I'm going to take the NSC. That's what it's built for. It's fulfilling its designed purpose. And meanwhile, it's creating an environment on Division Street where transit can operate smoothly, and there's still, frankly, opportunity for traffic growth as the area infills. And there's still 30 to 38,000, depending on the segment, vehicle trips per day maintained on Division. And as I said, the travel time on Division remains relatively stable. Next slide. This is another way of looking at that, as showing, this is a heat map looking at congestion, corridor congestion measured by the volume of traffic relative to the capacity of those lanes. And the arterials, the network is shown in the gray lines, and then the colors represent C, D, E, F levels of service for corridor capacity or lane capacity. And everything that doesn't have a color on it means it's A or B. It's functioning well. There may be some intersection delay with traffic signals, but it's not actual congestion in the lanes. And if you look across the region, and the no build, there's congestion. You see the Maple Ash corridor along I-90, even a segment of the NSC when it's mixing with the traffic, I believe, coming off of Trent or coming on to it from Trent. But then you look at A, center running, side running A and C, and you look at those, and you don't see much difference. The data is saying that, again, the NSC is poised to take on regional traffic, and with the Division corridor accommodating bus lanes or BAT lanes, either kind, there is not an uptick of congestion on that corridor. There's some minor little oddities. Some of these alternatives, looks like there's a big amount of congestion around the new Chick-fil-A happening in 2040. Maybe they're having a new rebranding on that year, but it drives a lot of traffic. But it's just some weird oddities. There's so many little levers in the model. But otherwise, the only thing that really stands out to us for traffic congestion is side running B. And you can see that choice to make Ruby Street a two-way street with bad lanes, which can really help the right turn movements, but it doesn't do so well for the left turn movements where that is basically backing up the lane of traffic. You can change some of that with signalization, but it means there's going to be more congestion on Ruby Street.
Hey, Carl,
Yes,
can I interject right here real quick?
for sure.
Some of the conversation we had about that is whether or not we want to assume the goal for all of these projects is reducing congestion. And while I know for traffic planners, that's often what they're charged with, but when you're coming into a very dynamic retail environment on that North Bank, you've got Gonzaga and a lot of activity on Division and Ruby, making that a two-way street and supporting the business community, having lower levels of service for vehicles is actually built into our comprehensive plan. And we anticipate some areas will have slower traffic because that actually benefits the whole walkability environment. And so I just thought I'd mention we did discuss that at our group, and we probably should say that here as well, because that meets a lot of our city goals, is to create a vibrant, walkable business environment in some areas.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember. That's a good part of the discussion, and certainly speaks to Councilmember Cathcart's point of ensuring that we have a good pulse on the businesses in that area to understand the value of that environment, the walkable environment, and on-street parking adds on Division Street, while Ruby becomes that real multimodal street, how that can benefit, or what concerns they may have with that environment.
Hey, Carl.
Yeah.
So congestion for me certainly is a concern, but I guess where I'm wondering is, have you guys modeled what the congestion looks like if you do the center lane for buses, and you've got bus stops running all the way up Division, and you've got folks crossing, pedestrians crossing Division to get to that bus? I'm wondering how much does that create congestion and back up traffic? Because, Gonzaga, you look at the hawk light there, and oftentimes, there's nobody crossing, so there's no issue. But when there are a big group of kids or something crossing, it can actually create quite the backup in a very short period of time. So I'm just wondering if you guys modeled that, and what does that look like?
Yeah, at this stage, it's too fine of an operational model to be able to get at, because we haven't, designed full locations of stops or the pedestrian model. I think that's a fascinating question. However, it's a really good point, especially if those stations are separated from the intersections that are already signalized, because if they're at the current intersections, then it's the same signal. There's already enough time for pedestrian walk time, but more pedestrians mean people have to hold back longer. No, so it has not been modeled at this point, but it's a really good question.
I think that'd be good data. And then also, if you did do the center line, could you do a bike lane down the center? So you would just have one bike lane that would accommodate bicyclists? Since you're already moving pedestrians to the center of the road anyway, would that be an opportunity to save some space and do it that way? On the main line segment, the right-of-way is such that it's unless we were taking away more lanes of traffic, you wouldn't be able to accommodate a bike lane in the center or side. And so that's something we had a good conversation at our November meeting, I think, or late October, with the steering committee about that challenge. And I think that they all are very interested in how do we make sure that, given the constraints on the right-of-way, that we think about bicyclists who are really accessing the businesses in these areas. May not be the cyclist who's commuting 7 miles each day, but who are taking transit to get off at Northtown Mall, and then they're traveling in that area. They live new apartment complex nearby, and that local pedestrian or bicyclist footprint around the station in a mile area really becomes important. So it may not be just north-south on the street, but
And I think there's also an interest of being closer to the businesses on the side if they can. Any other questions on traffic modeling? And I know that our time is up, so I have a few more slides, but it's up to you, Council President, how you'd like me to proceed.
Go ahead.
Okay, next slide. So this is our preliminary evaluation, and so again, we're still cranking out more numbers on this, but the short of it is every one of these is feasible. The side running has likely the best performance for transit customers, but you see implementation feasibility we see as the lowest performing, and you can see the color coding there, green to red. Side running A, with the bat lanes throughout, no major changes to the travel lanes, has some of the best implementation feasibility and the capital costs in particular, and those two things make it more competitive for funding. Side running B, it has some challenges, pros and cons when it comes to corridor mobility because of that added congestion on Ruby Street. Implementation feasibility does, and the funding competitiveness, because Division Street would not be the transit street, it would not be eligible to use federal funding from federal transit funding from a small starts grant in the future to redevelop that street. So that would be funded separately by the city, perhaps through a Transportation Improvement Board grant or other state funds. But that's why our initial evaluation, we've put that lower marks than the other alternatives. And side running C is really like A, it's good. A little bit more technically challenging with the cycle track, but not significantly so. And funding competitiveness, it's still very competitive, but because we expect it to be a slightly higher cost, that does not knock it down just a notch. Again, we're working on developing further granularity on all these metrics as part of our overall corridor development plan. Next slide. So I alluded to past outreach activities. We are currently conducting an online open house. So those postcards encourage people to go to divisionconnects.org, and there is an online open house that has a number of questions, preference questions and pros and cons and concerns. And there will be a virtual open house on Thursday, February 11th, and that will be posting that online. If you go to divisionconnects.org, the link to attend that looks like we'll be using WebEx for that. And as I mentioned, we are doing targeted outreach to property owners and business owners. Next slide. Okay, so there are a number of major activities kind of coming out of this initial study, the first phase of Division Connects. One is for those who've been around city council or watched meetings for a while, or STA board meetings, know that we identified long ago for the city line a preferred alternative, what has been known in the past as a locally preferred alternative. We're targeting to have that approved by the STA board in March, and potentially also see concurrence, city council concurrence and inclusion in of that resolution, as well as concurrence or inclusion of the locally preferred alternative in the region's metropolitan transportation plan. So that's one track of actions. Another is finalizing and approving a corridor development plan, and that would be basically a report out of all the work over the last year on this project and the roadmap for implementation, and that would be targeted for approval by the STA board in April. And then this spring, launching the Division Connects Phase 2 study. And apologize, this version didn't get corrected. The study will be led by SRTC, not by STA in this second phase, but it'll be a partnership with STA, WashDOT, the City of Spokane, and my area here, Spokane County, and that will continue into 2022. And that's really looking at land use and other multimodal changes in the corridor. So that will continue as STA then takes on the fourth item here, which is preliminary engineering and NEPA scoping. And that will include the services for engineering and to really get this project ready to enter into project development, which is a federal milestone for full design engineering phase of the work while we seek a competitive small starts grant. And we're targeting May 5th to have the STA board approve that. Now, there's other things going on with conversations with the legislature and whatnot, where if you look at the Hobbs version of a transportation revenue package and spending plan, $25 million has been identified as a partnership project with the state for the Division BRT project. So we're excited to have that recognized. It's something actually years in the making, and Senator Billig has been really championing that over the last 4 years now, and making sure this project is teed up in future transportation planning by the state. And that's, I think, our last substantive slide. Are there any questions?
Go ahead and volunteer if anyone has, because we can't see everyone on the screen. So,
Carl,
Councilmember
so
Cathcart.
in terms of the big picture planning, what so relative to when the NSE is supposed to be completed, when would, if there's work being done on this corridor, when would that begin? Not until the NSE is done, or would it begin sooner?
We envision it being these two projects being done at the same time, potentially. And as far as work on the corridor, if it's, and this is back to implementation feasibility, if you've noticed the city line construction, a lot of it has been very uninvasive, and so we get in there, you focus on a station, you close a lane or two, the work is done for the platform, the shelters come later, and then striping of the lanes wouldn't happen until you get closer to opening. And so that construction, you know, this could be, there's years of work still to do, but the idea, and that's why the modeling is focused around the opening of the NSC. The assumption is this could be done in parallel with that. I know there's conversations about ways to accelerate the NSC to potentially as early as 2026.
Hopefully.
I don't know if we can be as early as that, but potentially it really is why we're still marching through every step we can on this project to be ready, likely, you know, as early as 24 or 25 to begin construction.
Okay, thank you.
For sure. Any other questions?
All right. Hey, thanks, Carl and your team, for all that helpful information and imagination of what's possible. I'm just struck again by listening to people who think way out in the future for us so that we actually get there. And so I really appreciate that. And it's exciting. And when I hear things like, yeah, maybe 2026, suddenly I can almost imagine that. That's awesome. So thanks for helping make that real and those choices. And we'll look forward to engaging the community on what's going to work best for us there. So thanks so much. And
Thank you for your time today.
yeah.
Thank you all.
And I believe I'm going to have Tim Sigler here to talk about some CDBG funds. If I have that correct, I'm not sure. I don't see. Or maybe it's George. All right. Okay. George and Rowena.
So this is George.
Yeah.
Yeah. So wanted to just give you all an update on some of the work that we've been doing through the Community Housing Human Services Board and the Evaluation Review Committee. So we received these rental assistance dollars from HUD, specifically through the Community Development Block Grant Program. And one of the things that we really wanted to do as we received feedback from the committee was reach out to some of our underserved communities and see what the needs are and how we can better reach out to these folks. And so Rowena, she serves on the Evaluation and Review Committee as part of the Community Housing and Human Services Board. And so she's going to give just kind of an overview of where we're at, some of the engagement that we've conducted so far. And then we have another meeting scheduled with our stakeholder group the week of, I'm looking at it right now, on Wednesday, February 17th. So Rowena, if you could give an overview for us.
Sure. Thank you, council members. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to do a quick report, as George had already prefaced, that the CHHS RFP and Evaluation Subcommittee really wanted to engage some organizations to figure out how we can best distribute these rental assistance dollars that are coming through from CDBG. And so what we did is, and sorry if there's background noise for me, what we did was we invited a few organizations. I should say this is, I'm doing my, like my health district hat, my former hat around data. This is a convenient sampling. It is not random sampling. So we talked to organizations who have received funds, like a third-party funds to do rental assistance. So they included Pacific Islander Community Association, Latinos in Spokane, Mujeres Unidas in Action, Hispanic Business Professional Association, the Spokane Immigrant Rights Coalition, and then we also included, we also invited AHANA, the NAACP, the Martin Luther King Center, the Way to Justice, Just One, the American Indian Community Center, the Tenants Union, and the Asian Pacific Islander Coalition to this discussion. And so we met on the 13th of January to really talk about two questions. And the first question is, given how rental assistance funds have been distributed thus far, what has worked and what needs to be improved? And then the second question is if they can design a system to distribute CDBG funds for rental assistance, what will it look like? And some of the learnings that came out of that discussion is really that Black, Indigenous, people of color-led organizations know how to best reach and serve their communities. And so when we look at funding around whether it's rental assistance or other funding, it's really important to look at outreach and the importance of outreach and culturally competent outreach methods that these organizations are utilizing, and that the organizations themselves are trusted messengers, or they have trusted messengers within them, so they can connect with community members in a much different way than some of our bigger organizations. They talked about barriers that they encountered, or that the people they were serving encountered. The very first one is really an onerous application process when applying for rental assistance. Translation and language access for our immigrant and refugee communities is big, because even though materials may be available in multiple languages, what they're finding is when they connect with some of our bigger organizations, there's no staff who actually speak those languages. And then lastly, and probably one of the biggest barrier, is that we heard from these smaller organizations that they would like to be contracted with directly by the city because they know their community and they know how to best distribute funding to their community. However, because they're smaller, the reimbursement process, which is the way it works now when we distribute funding, does not work for them because they just do not have the capital to be able to put up front the funding. So I think that based on that initial discussion, and mind you, again, it was like just a handful of organizations that we talked to. I think there are definite opportunities, especially for the city and CHHS, to engage some of our smaller organizations, especially those who are working with our Black, Indigenous, people of color communities, our vulnerable and impacted communities, in designing what that process is like. But we also need to be creative about how can we get those funds out and engage them in that process. So with that, George, did I miss anything?
No, I think you did an excellent job, Rowena. Thank you so much. And I just publicly want to thank Rowena for her leadership in pulling these groups together and really kind of opening our eyes to some of the gaps that we have within the community. And I'm really excited about the path that we're going down.
Hey, George, this is
Stratton.
Thank you. I do have a question. Did we do any outreach? I'm not sure how I want to ask this. I understand just talking with SNAP and talking with the workforce, the resource center, those folks, that it is a challenge to get, the application process has been a huge issue with people. My question is, have we talked to landlords to see what their challenges are as well, to see if there's any, I don't know, I know that I've heard from some that that process of when we gave money directly to the landlords for an individual's rent, that's how it was working. I'm just wondering if there was any feedback from landlords of what was working for them, what wasn't, if there was anything they would change to make this easier.
Yeah, and that's a great question. We had a representative of the tenants union that was part of the conversation that we've had, but nothing with landlords so far.
Okay.
Really, the goal at this point is identifying the greatest needs for the folks that are being impacted by COVID. But
Right.
That's absolutely something that we're interested in pursuing, is that conversation with some of the landlords and some of the barriers that they're running into. Because, yeah, once we get these public funds providing assistance for folks, it becomes complicated for really kind of everyone in that line. So finding ways to simplify that is absolutely something that we're considering and trying to find some innovative ways of doing things we haven't done before.
Yeah, I just think if we try and make it easier for landlords, then it's going to be easier for the tenants as well. So, okay, I just wanted to put that out there. Thanks.
Councilmember Cathcart.
Yeah, I would also agree. I mean, I think it's going to be much easier if landlords are enticed to apply for this, because my understanding is both landlords and tenants can apply, correct? So if we make it easier for the landlords, it probably makes it easier for the tenants too. The other comment I was going to make was back when we were doing the PPP loans, I know some in the Asian community had come to me and were concerned that there just wasn't enough outreach and translation services provided. And so kind of to piggyback on what was discussed earlier, I think that's really important that, mobile outreach, translation services into a lot of the various languages that are spoken in our community, just making sure everybody is given an opportunity to try and apply for this.
Yes, and thank you, Councilmember Cathcart. And on that point, I think what we heard during this initial conversation is really making sure that there's funding set aside for that outreach and translation that's separate from whether it's, like, let's say it's rental assistance dollars, that's separate from that.
George, this is Brian. Do we have these funds? Do we have a date that they're coming? I like all of this. It sounds really innovative and effective. I just am struck by these funds need to get out the door. So I'm just wondering what's our timeline, and are we just preparing for when they get here, or is the money already here and we need to step up and figure out how to distribute it?
Yeah, so good question. We have the award. We don't have the line of credit. So next Monday, the 8th, I'll be bringing to City Council at advanced agenda, as well as consent, the papers from HUD that will authorize us to receive our line of credit. So we're really close to having this whole thing come together. So yeah, hopefully we'll be able to award funds and have a program that's functioning fully by March 1st is really the goal. Okay. So that's where we're at right now.
And what's the amount of this? There's, we have some other federal rental assistance coming, and we have some Department of Commerce coming, but what's this amount, if you know?
Yeah, so this amount is approximately $2 million for rental assistance.
Okay. And does it come with its own internal restrictions on how it gets distributed, or is that up to us?
We've got quite a bit of flexibility on it. We have some baseline requirements that HUD has, so race, ethnicity, income level, and then we have to be able to document that the individual that's receiving the benefit has been impacted by COVID. So, so we have the ability to keep it pretty straightforward in getting these funds deployed to eligible folks.
Okay, great. Councilmember Stratton.
So, I'm just trying to make sure I understand it. So if we find a way to give some of these organizations direct access to funds to work with their clients to help with that rental assistance, they could do that, but we could still be there to direct or be a resource for them. Is that right?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that we're exploring right now is how can we partner with these organizations that have traditionally had a hard time making it through like our risk assessment, and as Rowena had mentioned, the ability to work on a reimbursement basis with minimal cash flow. So we're exploring some partnerships that we're really excited about. We don't have an idea of exactly how that's going to look at this time, but we're trying to find a way to say, okay, if we can't do it this way, let's find another way. So we're reaching out to larger scale community partners to see if they would be willing to act as kind of a primary subrecipient of these funds for us to then work with those communities in that regard. So trying some things we've never tried before and excited to see where that goes.
Well, sometimes that works, and sometimes we just need to look at other alternatives. So I appreciate your work. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Well, I'm super excited that we're trying to crack that nut of getting to communities that are shut out either by overlooking them or just because they don't have traditional capacities we require to work with us. So really appreciate that work. And thanks, Rowena, for dedicating your time to this too and coming to see us. So,
sure. Thank you.
And we will come back to you all once we know exactly how we're going to deploy these and the partnerships that we develop on this. So you'll get more information as it becomes available.
All right, great. All right, next we have, I don't think a lot of time to spend, but on some legislative issues. And I don't know if Eric is here. We wanted to get some real-time feedback of council members all at the same time on a couple issues. And so, Eric, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Council President. Well, your legislative team is seeking input from the entire council on two decisions. The first being about the full weight of our council behind this year's just cause or fair cause eviction proposal by making House Bill 1236 one of our Tier 1 legislative priorities. And the second decision whether to testify in support of House Bill 1156, which is ranked choice voting. You've looked at both these issues before. I guess what's different this year is just the sheer momentum both these issues have, their potential for passage. In the case of 1156, which is the just cause proposal, the dynamic is the statewide eviction moratorium is scheduled to end March 31st. Lawmakers are basically looking at two strategies to stave off a potential tsunami of evictions. The first, you've heard a lot about easing the financial burden on tenants and landlords. And the second, which this bill involves, which is reshaping the long-standing balance of power between tenants and landlords through a racial equity lens. So that's what's before you today. I asked Melissa Morrison to go over a couple specifics of the bill with her policy hat on, because there are a few differences from last year's proposal. So I'm going to turn it over to her, and we'll try to be mindful of your time.
Can I get those bill numbers again?
Yeah, 1156 is ranked choice voting, and 1236 is just or fair cause evictions. Both of these bills, incidentally, are co-sponsored by Representative Ormsby from the 3rd District, so there's some local support for both of these. Melissa, are you there?
Yep, she's sharing her screen. Oh.
I am. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I went through the bill analysis and just pulled out some information if it would be helpful for council members to see it, kind of what the bill summary is on 1236, and then to leave some space for discussion of the bill and for questions if council has any questions for Eric and I. The bill summary is really trying to specify reasons for eviction refusal to renew or termination of tenancy under the current Landlord-Tenant Act. And the causes, I think, is where a lot of the discussions is that they need to have a specific cause for the eviction, refusal to renew, or termination of tenancy. So I went ahead and outlined what those 11 enumerated clauses are. Granted, this is a very dense amount of information. So if people want to come back to it or read it, I just wanted to make sure this was available for reference if folks wanted to review the 11 different enumerated clauses for under the proposal of 1236. And another one of the changes is that if a tenant is moving out and there's other tenants in the unit, then those other tenants need to immediately apply or reapply as a prospective tenant on their own. So lining some more protections, but also responsibilities for tenants that may be staying in the unit when the primary tenant's moving out, as long as that the landlord knew that those other tenants had been living there. There's some enforcement remedies, especially some financial cost to landlords if they do violate the changes under this legislation. So I've bolded those right there. And then there's also been some changes to conform with the 1236 with the current Residential Landlord-Tenant Act. One of those is it stricken that a landlord can terminate a month-to-month lease with a 20 days notice. And that's where it comes to the discussion of, why the city of Spokane might be looking at this. Eviction prevention programs have long been seen as upstream homelessness prevention. If we can keep people stable in their homes, it's a way to prevent homelessness down the road. The just cause eviction can help prevent or help keep residents stable, but I think it's important to note that it's a prong in an overall strategy for residential stability, because renters still can be vulnerable to eviction for the high cost of rent and being cost burdened. So while it's a strategy, it's also, not the only form of protection, as we still talk about these and helping people who are cost-burdened in their homes. I did watch the testimony, and there were a lot of landlords that testified against the bill. I think they had 83 people sign in to testify, and they obviously weren't able to hear from all 83. But there were concerns from landlords about the increase in the business costs, and also their ability to remove nuisance tenants that might be impacting the enjoyment of neighbors or people in a complex. So that was something that was highlighted by a lot of landlords as a concern they had with the bill. And then finally, I just wanted to highlight that the recommendation for a just cause local just cause eviction bill was part of the 2019 analysis to impediments to fair housing choice that was done by the Northwest Fair Housing Alliance. Because renters are disproportionately people of color and/or disabled or people in low income. And so giving more protections does have a bit of an equity lens in that they are disproportionately impacted by ending month-to-month tenancies or having residential instability. So Eric and I just wanted to do a very quick overview of the bill and leave plenty of time for discussion, but also if you want me to put up any of the slides that show some of the language, I'm happy to do that. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Brian, and I wanted to recommend us endorsing this for a few reasons. One, when I talked to the Landlord Association, they prefer, if the city is thinking about anything like this, they strongly prefer that it be passed at a statewide level, not at a city level, so that it covers the entire region and you don't have to think about which city you live in or which county. The big difference on this bill, to me, what I noticed is that you get a landlord gets a free year to figure out whether they want to be in a long-term relationship with them. So if you give someone a year initial term and at the 10-month mark of that year, if you don't want to renew at the end of the year, you can give the tenant notice for any reason. You have to give them a reason, but it's the default is that they don't continue on. So you don't just have someone move in and then you're stuck with them for life, is how some landlords have been put this and been worried about it. But you do have that 10-month thing. And then the second is that it does explicitly, if the tenant is a nuisance or causing a nuisance, that's grounds for giving them notice to leave. So in my opinion, it's pretty balanced, but I just wanted to make that pitch. And I think Councilmember Mum first and then Councilmember Kinnear.
Thanks. I am going to dig into this more. There's other bills coming forward. I guess my question is, how many legs does this have? There's a lot of other moving parts. I'm just personally not ready to back something like this. I have some concerns about the requirements of forcing landlords to go into some sort of payment plan. There's some other concerns I have about, you own the home. You might want to go in and rehab it or do some improvements to it, but only if you're going to live in it. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I'm not ready to back. My question to Eric is, what chances does this have of passage?
Well, I'll first say, like any other piece of legislation, getting a bill through the entire process and to the governor's desk is akin to the miracle of birth. So I always handicap bills that they're not likely to pass. But that said, this is a proposal the legislature has taken on for several years. It just feels to me, based on the number of people testifying, the number of interests lining up behind it, the clear and present need for eviction reform, both help for landlords and tenants, and some of this restructuring that I think it will go further this year than it ever has before. No slam dunk, but I would say I think the interest in putting this on our Tier 1 priority agenda from other council council members has been that, having the weight of our council behind it could literally help its passage, especially since our 3rd district legislators are so influential. So.
And I just wanted to touch on, I know Councilmember Kinnear has a point, but I wanted to touch on what Eric was talking about. This year, I mean, we've heard from our legislators that the 3 things that they're going to focus on this year are the early learning, housing, and police reform. And so you can bet that there's going to be some form of this type of law that's going to be passed. Now, there could be modifications along the way, but this is the one that I believe the legislature is going to go with. And again, like, there could be modifications along the way. So Candace, I think that some of your, reservations could be solved by the time it gets to passage. That's kind of how the legislature works with those, checks and balances of both sides. So I think this has a really great chance of passing this year. Just hearing the rumblings from Olympia, and what a great opportunity for us to be champions to, endorse it and help the legislature move this through the process, because our tenants currently are much more vulnerable than they ever have been with COVID-19. And with the governor's moratorium going to be ending soon, we need to take that into consideration. If we don't have something in place for protection for tenants, we are going to see a huge rise in homelessness, huge, detrimental to our city. So I'd rather keep people in their homes and work with the folks that are the stakeholders at the table in doing so. So I fully support this and am a big proponent of bringing this forward. I also think it makes it a little bit easier on us at the city level, because then we don't have to deal with our own policy. We have them to do it for us, and so what a great opportunity for us to kind of support the work the legislature does.
So
right.
just thank you for that. And I certainly support a statewide policy and support some of the tenant reforms. I think the 20-day notification is ridiculous. I mean, we could certainly go to a 30, but there's too many different items in here for me to support it wholeheartedly as it currently stands. My preference is that we monitor it. If individual council members want to speak to it, go for it. But I'm not ready to support this yet.
Councilmember Kinnear and then Councilmember Cathcart.
Okay, my turn. Thank you. So I just want to, Karen, I'm going to loop you in on this comment, because Karen and I spent a lot of time working with both landlord and tenant associations identifying who the bad actors were in terms of landlords. And we identified 5. Am I remembering this correctly, Karen? And these are landlords who have large amounts of rental property. They may or may not live in Spokane. It's a revenue stream for them. It's income. They don't give a whit about the tenants or maintaining their properties. The Landlord Association recognizes them as bad players. Sorry. So we're really looking at a narrow group of people here that are not following the rules, and I would like to support this. We need to go forward, and get this solved.
All right, Councilmember, I hope you get some water, Councilmember Kinnear and Councilmember Cathcart.
Yeah, I guess I would be opposed to both items. On this one in particular, the landlord one, I can't support anything that's going to diminish the rental stock that we have now, and that's exactly what it'll do. I mean, you add these regulations, more burden. I mean, landlords are going to get out. I think they're really, really frustrated already as it is. So that's a concern of mine. And then I just think we need to be prioritizing pro-housing legislation. I mean, that should be our priority, is anything that's going to enable us to actually build more housing. If you want to give tenants leverage over landlords, you create more housing. You make it a rental market so that folks have choices. And that's the best way to give them leverage over landlords. So I just think that this is the wrong direction. If we want to preserve rental housing for the folks who need it and want it, then this is the wrong direction to go.
Councilmember Burke.
Yeah, thanks. I just would argue that this is a housing bill because we are protecting tenants and they are part of our constituency, and keeping them in housing is the most important thing we can do financially for our budget. So I see this as a housing bill through and through. We're on the side, we're also working on other infrastructure, building, those type of things, those bills. And so, it's not just building more housing is not going to help if tenants are insecure in their housing place of living. So this does complete the circle that we need to complete. And, I hear the concerns being brought up, and I hope, Candace, that some of the amendments can solve some of your heartburn around it, because I really do think that it will work itself out. A lot of the times these bills are drafted in a certain way, and it comes out in a very different way at the end. So I have all the faith in our legislators, and I would love to vote on this on Monday night if we could.
And just to be clear, we're not voting today. We're just having some commentary and get people to talk about it beyond Candace and Kate and I talking at our legislative meeting, what we do. We thought we would expand it. And so I'd love to hear from other folks. Councilmember Stratton.
So what would we do Monday night? It would be a resolution that we would support it?
It would just be a resolution to add it to our legislative agenda as supporting it. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I don't know, Kate, has there been any discussion on, here's my frustration, because we've been dealing with this a long time, and I try and stay really balanced between the landlords and the tenants, because I know they need each other. I know we need tenants to have good landlords. Has there been any discussion about putting something in there to help us fight these bad landlords? I mean, there are the 5 that I know of that especially in West Central, they shouldn't even be in business. And to me, I think that's one of the rubs with the landlord association, is that we're good people, we work with our tenants, we care about our tenants, but yet we get beat up over these 5 or 6 landlords that own lots of property and should be shut down. And I don't know when we're going to get there, when we can be able to say to the good landlords, we hear you, and we're going to go after these people. Because I had one incident where we had a person who had to be moved out of a unit near Gonzaga. And I called the landlord association. Steve Corker got in his car and drove to this unit and called me and said, nobody should be living in this place. This is horrible. And then started looking for the good landlords to take this tenant in to get him out of the situation. So, I mean, I think the landlords are willing to step up too, the good ones, but I just don't know how to go after those bad ones that are wrecking it for so many people.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I just wanted to remind everybody that all this bill does is make a landlord tell a tenant why they're being evicted. There's no other things on it. Like it literally just says, hey, tenant, I'm evicting you because X, Y, or Z, and A, B, and C. So this doesn't preclude anybody from evicting anybody. They are still allowed to evict. They just cannot evict for no reason. And that's all this bill is. So I just wanted to say that. I do think this will weed out the bad landlords. This helps us in the process of weeding out the bad landlords. But the second thing I wanted to say is Steve Corker is not going to be around forever. And the next landlord association person might not do that. And so if we don't have protections in place for these tenants, then those things are going to keep happening. And so that's what policy is here for, is to continue to drive us into a direction where we're fixing things that are wrong. Because in my opinion, Steve Corker's awesome. I think he's great, and I can't even believe every time I call him, he goes to that person's house and he helps them, and that's great. But not every landlord association person is going to do that. And so when we don't have Steve Corker, we should have laws and policies set in place so that that student didn't have to live in that housing because it's illegal now because of the quality of housing. So, you know, this is why I think policies are so important, because while all of us might all agree that that student shouldn't have been living there, if there's no policy written about it, then it's going to keep happening over and over again.
So my last question is, so if I'm a landlord and I find one of those reasons to evict somebody, remind me how many days do they have to get out? If I'm going to evict somebody and I have all the reasons lined up, how long do they have?
You can give them, if there's a couple different reasons, but if someone's violating the rental agreement, you know, they're making a mess, they're bothering people, they're damaging, they're threatening, I think it's a 14-day notice. So you can give them 14 days, and if they don't get out in 14 days, you can go to court. Or
they can remediate it. So if you have in your lease no pets allowed, and then they bring a pet in, they can do a 14-day notice, but if the person gets rid of the pet, then they can stay if they can prove that they got rid of it.
But some of the other ones where if you need the unit for a relative of yours, or you want to sell it, or you just want to go out of the business of renting, those I'm remembering just off the top of my head, those are more like 60 days notice. So if it's something like that, but if it's something that the tenant is causing a problem, they're not paying rent, they're causing damage, they're causing problems, it's a 14-day notice, and then you can go to court. So, and just since I have the mic for a second, I wanted to mention two things. One, we have in our 100-day plan to use some of our strategic initiative money to explore contracting with a nonprofit to provide some lawyers for those really bad landlords. That's what it's for, ones where they're clearly violating the law. So we have that in there to try to get an RFP out on. So I just wanted to mention that. But the second thing I just wanted to mention, and Councilmember Burke's done a good job of explaining it, but this particular bill isn't so much for the problem landlords. This is really just for housing security for people. Under the current law, the landlord can give you 20 days notice, and you have to find a new place, get your family packed up, and move. So it's really about security. There's a bunch of other laws about building conditions and retaliation and that would address the so-called 5 bad landlords. But this is really just broadly for all those people who don't own their homes or aren't in a mortgage, which is most of us, which we don't really worry about that too much. But if you don't, aren't in a mortgage or own your own home, then you really are subject to 20-day notice each month that you have to tear up your whole life. So that's what it's about. But it has to be, I agree with everything that's been said so far, it has to be balanced. It has to make it work for landlords. Otherwise, as Councilmember Cathcart mentions, people will sell and get out of the business. So, but I saw Councilmember Kinnear and then Councilmember Cathcart, and then after that, Councilmember Wilkerson.
Thanks. Well, I was busy choking to death. Sorry, Kate, don't laugh. Karen, I wasn't sure where you were going with what you were saying, whether you were supporting or not, given what we learned over that year. And I know what you're saying, Council President, about this is for the other landlords, not the 5 that we've identified. But according to the Landlord Association, and I've taken that with a grain of salt too, most landlords abide by the rules and aren't going to be evicting people. It's the people who are those 5 that seem to have they're the repeat offenders. So Karen, I'm not sure whether you're agreeing or not.
I don't know what I just know that this has been going on for so long, and we've tried so hard to find a balance. And I just, I guess I get frustrated because early on, there was such a discussion on if we're going to jump out of the gate and work together, then our first priority should be the bad landlords. I just remember that being such a big thing that we thought, okay, the tenants unit and the landlord association could work together on that and have and build that partnership. So I feel badly that we haven't been very successful in that piece of it. I'd like to see, I just would like to see a better balance, because I do, both sides are so frustrated, and I don't know. I know 2 years ago when I had the landlords and the tenants in one room and they were talking about just cause, they talked about the 60 days. In fact, it wasn't Steve Corker, it was another president of the association, Jim somebody. But he had looked at Terry Anderson and said, so what if we did a just cause with 60 days notice? Or Terry Anderson said that, with 60-day notice. And Mr. Cushman said, we would accept that, but will you give us the same? Meaning, if you're going to move out, you've got to give us 60 days. And it was the first time I'd ever seen the two sides go, okay, where there was some agreement there. So I know they're capable of it. I just don't want to. I'd like to see a balance where they both can live with it and they both feel like they've had a part of this, and we're not going to make it difficult on the good landlords who just want to rent an apartment or a house.
Well, I guess my point is that we haven't gotten anywhere. And I'm looking at this bill saying this is a step we can take to actually move the needle, because you and I have been working on this for 2+ years and nothing's changed, and that's my frustration. And unless the state does something, and it's a statewide effort, as Kate said, we're going to have this tsunami of people who are going to be evicted. And that really scares me, that it's going to be a huge strain on our infrastructure and our systems. So, okay, I'll be quiet now.
All right.
I agree with you.
I'm going to go to Councilmember Wilkerson first, and then because she hasn't spoken yet, and then Councilmember Cathcart, and then we have to move quickly to the next thing. Councilmember Wilkerson. You're on mute, but there you go.
There we go. Cool. First of all, I really appreciate the conversation. It's one of the best ones we've had in a while. I really do support it going to our legislative agenda, because it is bigger than us. It is a statewide issue, so I support that. Since I came on council, it's all been about the enforcement of the bad landlords, that small group. And I think that's where the rub is what type of enforcement will come out of any of this going forward. But it does elevate the conversation. So I will support moving it on to our legislative agenda.
Councilmember Cathcart.
Yeah, it's always a few bad apples that ruins the whole thing for the bunch. And so I agree. I mean, I think we have to focus on the bad landlords and holding them accountable. And I don't know what strategies, policies have been looked at the local level, but I'm happy to work on this concept at least. Councilman Stratton, if it's something that maybe we could find some way forward on, and also frankly the landlords that enable their properties to be used as nuisance homes, I think needs to be included in that as well. And that does happen around our community. In fact, I'm dealing with a situation like that on Illinois right now. So so I think there's got to be some way forward to address the actual bad actors, and you shouldn't punish the entire industry or harm the entire industry to get at where the actual issues are. And so I'm all in favor of finding some path forward for real accountability there.
We will create the bad landlord posse.
All right.
And we will have T-shirts made, and we'll do it, because there's got to be something we can do. It's just been lingering, and we can talk offline.
I agree.
All right. Hey, I really appreciate the conversation, as others did as well. We're not done with it yet, but we're going to move on. You want me to just jump to the ranked choice voting, Eric? Because I'm one of the ones that wanted to put it on. So we had a presentation last year about ranked choice voting, and there's a bill at the legislature that would simply give local jurisdictions the option. It's not a requirement. It's not a mandate. It would just give them the option, and they've worked closely with the state State Auditors Association, so the auditors in various counties, and I think and they have a bill hearing coming up on the 8th, and just wondered if people have any either pros or cons about the local option bill. All right, Kate's a pro, for sure. Anyone else have any?
I'm pro. Yeah, I think it's a good idea to let us have another, another option to look at the reform in terms of voting and democracy.
All right, Councilmember Cathcart.
Yeah, I'm not immediately opposed to the concept. I want a lot more information, a lot more study, and I definitely would want it to be a very slow rollout so that we don't confuse voters. There all kinds of crazy stuff can happen if you do things, on short notice. So I just want to make sure it's a long rollout, a lot of time to educate if that is in fact what was going to happen. But in terms of the ledge agenda, and I know I'm a broken record, I'll be a broken record for 2 or more years. We need to focus on housing. It's a housing crisis, and so that to me should be the priority.
All right. Councilmember Mumm.
I don't have a problem with it. It gives local options, which I always love. So the cities can determine if we want to do it or not. And I think democracy is the one thing we do as city council.
Any other comments? Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. So we have an executive session. I don't know if to talk about labor negotiations is the purpose, and probably, I know some people have to leave the meeting, so we're going to get a link to another one. If you can attend, that'd be great. You just get an update. We will probably do it till 12:55 by my clock, and if necessary, we'll renew it longer, but I'm not expecting a particular long one. So we're not adjourning this meeting. It'll stay open, and I'll come back at 12:55 and either extend or finish it. We don't expect any more presentation or any action. Yeah, we're going to extend for 10 minutes to 1:05 by my watch. All right, we're back. We're going to extend till 1:10. What? Done. This. Oh, we're going to extend till 1:10. 1, we're going to extend till 1:15. All right, we finished our executive session finally, so we're done with that. We're adjourning council study session with no further action or testimony. We'll see everyone next Monday for our Urban Experience Committee meeting at 1:15, and there's no briefing at 3:30 on Monday, but there'll be a legislative session at 6 p.m. Thanks.